Hello, everyone. Welcome to Game 2 live pregame coverage, Gyro Step Podcast Network, Bucks versus Suns. We are here to not subject people to national media Bucks coverage, which is one of the worst things you can find outside of a few exceptions. Any friend of the podcast watching this, but I am joined by Gyro Step host Rohan Kadi, Win in 6 host Adam McGee. I am Ty Windish of the Gyro Step podcast. The Bucks are down 0-1 right after game 1. We were more frustrated than discouraged or disheartened. How's everyone feeling now?
I'm feeling all right. We got Reva in the chat saying I'm the GOAT, so obviously I'm feeling good right now.
How could you not?
You know, I've got good vibes. Good vibes.
Yeah, good vibes. I mean, the Suns are good. Road games, I think, are going to be tough to win for both teams in this series, but good vibes.
So we should end, of course, with predictions, and hopefully we get there this time before the stream just dies near the end, which wasn't the greatest, but it was near the end at least. But I want to talk about, the must-win thing. It gets thrown around but before almost every playoff game. I think it's worth asking because I do think you could look at it either way for this game. Personally, I don't think Game 2 is a must-win, maybe just because of the Nets series. I mean, I still feel like, and that might be clouding my judgment on this Suns team, but if you can go down 0-2 to KD and need to win in KD's house in Game 7, it ended up being in that series, I just feel like you could win Game 5 or 7 in Phoenix. But Adam, what do you think? Is this a must-win game for the Milwaukee Bucks tonight?
No, absolutely not. I mean, the problem is if you lose tonight, then Game 3 and Game 4 are both must win. That's the real issue. But that doesn't necessarily make tonight must win. It's perfectly fine to just hold home court. If the Suns hold home court, the challenge is then the Bucks have to go back to Milwaukee, win their 2 games, and make this a best of 3 series, which is the kind of territory they've been getting to generally in these playoffs. And from there, then it's anyone's game. Home court, I think, just matters a little bit less as the stakes really ratchet up, and the games often tend to be a little bit tighter. So it's not quite must win yet, but if they don't win tonight, it's going to get must win very quickly, and we're all going to be really feeling the tension for all of Game 3, and then if they win it, for all of Game 4. So it would be great if the Bucks could do us all a favor and actually get this one.
Yeah, I mean, it's as close to a must-win as you can get without reaching must-win territory, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Does it?
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah.
It ratchets up the pressure in a big way if you can't steal this game, which the Bucks have shown that they can handle.
Like, you don't want it to come to that point, obviously, but this Bucks team, it's just shown resiliency. That's the word of the postseason for this Bucks team, just resiliency. Given, like I just said, you don't want it to reach that level. It's not like you have to fight back from a down 0-2 or you fight back from a deficit every single series. But this team is capable of doing so. However, maybe even up the series, like that's also an option.
There's also, if you do win this game, talk about flipping the switch, then the Suns have dropped one at home. You have a chance to hold home court and you're up 3-1 in the NBA Finals. Easy as that is how it sounds, but really the pressure flips in an entirely different way if the Bucks can't come away with this one tonight. And all of Game 1, all of the narrative, all of the national talking points around Game 1, they mean nothing. If the Bucks take Game 2, the series is officially in the Bucks' hands.
Yeah, and I think even if you win Game 2 and lose 1 of 3-4, it seems like, oh, what a missed opportunity. And it is, but it's also like, well, you've proved you can win in Phoenix too if you're the Bucks. So you have to be feeling even better about the best of 3 that you'd have than you did if you just lose Game 2 and hold home court. Because, hey, we already showed we can win in Phoenix. We just need to win one more game there, 1 at home. We can do it. So I think I agree, not a must win. Would be nice. Feels very 2021 Bucks playoff run-esque for them to not do the sensible best case thing and to make it as hard as possible, but somehow still win. So I guess if that's the end result, that's all that matters. Logan in the chat says, down with Charks, up with the Milwaukee Bucks. I do want to briefly touch on the Torrey Craig thing. It doesn't have to be specifically that article. I thought we were going to get this at some point the guy's going to hit like 2 threes in a quarter or something. I was ready for it then. Wasn't ready for it after a game where he had more fouls than points and the Suns lost his minutes by 10 in a game they won fairly handily. I just can we close the book on this? Like, I know we're going to hear about it, but can we can we close the book?
You fueled the fire today, Ty.
What did I do?
I think you tweeted about it.
Oh,
it's the rule.
Of course.
It's
I know.
the rule.
I know.
It's tough. I'm often guilty of it myself, but I tried to make it a rule. It's, part of the reason this podcast exists, why we're doing a live show like this, is because we know sometimes the narratives aren't exactly aligned with what really is kind of representative of where the Bucks are, what kind of place they're at as a team, what their roster situation is. I think this is a classic example of it. Like, to me, I just it's not a big deal. Sharks knows more about basketball, or has forgotten more about basketball than I'll ever know. But at the same time, I mean, I don't really see the point of that. I took a quick read through and I was like, this is just not worth my time, because if you're talking about where the Bucks are lacking depth and where it's really going to kill them at this point, I don't know how you're not starting with guards. To be into wings and having Torrey Craig in that discussion is kind of tricky as it is. Torrey Craig is a 4 to me, which is why you get PJ Tucker and Torrey Craig is no longer on the team. We all saw the way the moves played out, and there's a clear sense of once you get PJ, okay, well, the roster spot was cleared, the minutes were cleared, maybe more specifically than that. But you're looking at this series, what they really need is a shooting guard or a point guard. Either just a guard would be great for the Bucks right now, a playable guard. It wouldn't be Torrey Craig. I really don't see how that would have helped the Bucks. It certainly wouldn't have helped their spacing. He can be inconsistent with his shot. So you're adding some not so great variables in there. And I don't know if the trade-off would have been enough. So to me, it was just, you're right. It's something that was always going to come up. I would have expected after he had a good game. But I don't think we should focus too much on it. It's not the position that the Bucks were, punished for not having more depth at in game one, or indeed at any point in these playoffs.
What we should focus on is him getting dropped by a Chris Middleton spin move.
It was beautiful.
It was.
My last note on the Craig thing is there's 2 different players who played in these playoffs who the Bucks have swung and missed on in the last 12 months that would have helped so much more. They just got done playing against Bogdan Bogdanovic. The other team in the finals, the Suns, played against a team with Austin Rivers. Not even the right guy to harp on the Bucks about not having. I mean, there's juicier options out there. So at least if you're gonna get the Bucks slander, get it right on. Speaking of Bogdan, Adam in the chat says, found the Gyro Step pod the day we almost, in quotes, got Bogdan. Haven't missed more than a couple episodes since. What a ride. Loving the crossover content with Win in 6. Here's the sentence that got me to read the whole comment. Rohan and Ty are hit and miss. Beautiful. I love that this is becoming a bit.
I love it's a bit too, because lots of people won't know it's a bit. So anyone who's just tuning for the first time,
maybe it's not a bit. Yeah, it could be.
I guess Adam's, reliable all the time.
Very steady. Tanner in the comments asked a question I think is a good one, and just to generally talk about Giannis a bit. Not a question. He's getting the vibe. Giannis plays 40-ish minutes tonight. That's not sourced. I think that's a gut feeling from Tanner. But Rohan, what did you think about the Giannis we saw in Game 1? Obviously, looked more spry in the first half than the second half. What are your thoughts on how much we'll see him and how he's going to look in Game 2?
I think we're going to see his minutes threshold go up compared to Game 1. He played just over 35 minutes in Game 1. I think that's going to go up in Game 2, considering how spry he looks. His comments after the game saying he has no pain in his knee, which is just absolutely bonkers. But considering it seemed like the Bucks were a little hesitant to see him play major minutes in Game 1, given, again, he did play over 35 minutes, but they didn't want to cross that 40 threshold. I think they're going to cross it in this game, assuming it's a close game. And you got to play your best player. If he's ready, he's available. The medical staff has cleared him. If he's ready to go, he's ready to go, and you gotta play him. Because again, we talked about this on the post game 1 pod. They won his minutes. He played really well, and in a game the Suns handily won, and he plays over 35, and they still win his minutes. That's really important. which is why I think he's probably going to hit around like 40, 42-ish.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely get to 40. They may still have to hold him back a little bit, but based on the fact that they did win his minutes in game one, every minute that you can get extra out of Giannis compared to that is going to be a win for the Bucks. It's going to take them closer to hopefully winning this game. If you could get to the 40-42 range, you're talking 6 to 8 minutes. Now, can the Bucks survive 6 to 8 minutes without Giannis? That's TBD, but it's, a lot more likely, or there's a much greater chance than when he's only playing 35, 36 minutes.
I do think there's even like a higher likelihood of them surviving than you would expect, because the Suns bench unit at this point is fairly uninspiring. Like, really, unless Campaign is playing like the god he was for a few games over the last 2 rounds, like, it's Torrey Craig and Cam Johnson, who's a good shooter, but a good shooter, and then Kaminsky, if he plays. Cam Johnson can shoot, man. But
yeah, no, I'm more concerned that he's more than a shooter.
Yeah, a bit. You think he is or isn't?
If I'm picking, I know we all have, Jay Crowder PTSD, but if I'm picking this series, Jay Crowder, I'm picking Cam Johnson.
Oh yeah, I mean I could, but not on holding someone like.
No, not locking
Giannis.
Down the same way. But
yeah.
that isn't what Crowder did to the Bucks, really, to give us
that's
such
true.
fear of him in the first place. It was all the trees he made. But yeah, I mean, Frank the Tank is he's going to play some minutes. They've got no other options now with Sarich down.
I think they're just going to have to play Ayton a lot, realistically. It's going to come down to how much Ayton can play, because we even saw when Sarich went down and now he's going to be out for the rest of the series. That's just so unfortunate. 2 minutes into your first finals game. It sucks. Like, come on. Shouts to the homie. Hope you get better soon. When Sarich went out, we saw Kaminsky come in, and he played less than 4 minutes. He immediately got targeted by the Milwaukee Bucks, and they were just like, okay, Monty Williams was like, okay, guess we can't play him. So it's really going to come down to how many of those minutes are going to go without DeAndre Ayton on the court. Because if your option is Frank Kaminsky, you're just going to get burned in those minutes. It's sort of similar to the question that's facing Milwaukee, in that the Bucks are getting burned in the non-Giannis minutes. The Suns are going to get burned in the non-Ayton minutes. It's really going to come down to which one of those two is going to play more and be more effective in their increased minutes load.
Well, it's going to come down to the Bucks actually winning those minutes decisively. I know they won the bench minutes in game one for sure, just generally, but I think there needs to be such a focused attack, especially at the rim when Ayton is not in the game. I think we might see old friend of the team Torrey Craig at the 5 more, just because I don't know how many more games Kaminsky appears in this series, to be honest. Like, they might just go super small for 8 minutes, try to line it up when Giannis isn't out there, and force the Bucks to get to the rim. One guy, and I want to touch on defense a little bit before we get to predictions and everything else, but one guy who needs to get to the rim more, who didn't enough, and someone in the chat said, Muhammad, I'll also shout out the show, thank you, but said if we get game one Drew, this will be a short series. Pretty hard to disagree with that one. Drew needs to be better. He needs to get to the rim more. Needs to just, some of the turnovers just felt lackadaisical. Adam, looking at Drew's postseason as a whole and game one, compared to the end of the Atlanta series, like, the potential is there. And I know the Suns are a better defensive team than the Hawks were, but I thought the Hawks got better defensively as the series went on, as Bogdan got healthy and Cam Reddish came back into the fold. Is there any reason to believe that Drew can't be that effective? Like, is it schematic, like, or just the ability of the Suns holding him back, or has he just been inconsistent?
I think he's just being inconsistent and will continue to be inconsistent at this level. I don't think that's a wild statement. I think it comes with the players you're playing against. It comes with the pressure and intensity of it. It is still kind of new for him in spite of all of his experience, all of his ability. And he's a really, really good point guard, but he's still a tier below the guys who don't have to worry about that and can just go out night after night. Like, we're seeing one of them on the opposite side of the floor. And I just think there's a good chance we see a bounce back game from Drew tonight, but that doesn't mean, he's figured it out. There's no chance of game 3 or game 4 being something that looked like game 1. For the Bucks, if you get 4 good Drew games and you can win those games, that's all you're going to need in this series. But yeah, the more they can get out of him, I think it's also there's obviously a lot of talk coming out of game one about the disparity in free throws. Part of that is Drew not attacking too. There were bad calls, but there's also, if the Bucks want to kind of rack up some free throws that they weren't getting, they need Drew to keep attacking. And generally, again, this comes back to something we talked about before game one. If Giannis is able to play more minutes, this will go towards it. But if Drew can attack more, the Suns now don't have Saric. You can get Ayton in foul trouble, and this Suns team is in a really tough spot. And that's even, as you said, if they go to something like Torrey Craig at the 5 when Giannis is out there, fine, great. You know, that's when you get Brook Lopez in the game. You say, oh, Torrey Craig, you're at the 5.
He might
Good
fall
luck
out faster
guarding
than
the
Ayton.
deceptively long Brook Lopez.
Rohan, what are your thoughts on Drew? And I will say, just talking about the good Drew games you get, seems like we got some of his best when the Bucks needed him most. I mean, the very end of Game 7 in Brooklyn, 5 and 6 against Atlanta. Maybe he just saves it up for the end of the series. Like, I mean, Chris had kind of done that at times too. I don't know. It's still not the most reassuring thing that he'll show up when you need him. Trust me. But I don't know. Rohan, what are your thoughts on Drew heading into Game 2?
I think the place we need him to be more aggressive is the defensive end, not the offensive end. We need to see more point of attack defense. If the Bucks choose to vary their coverages a bit and go into a drop defensive scheme, he's going to be much, much more valuable at point of attack fighting over screens than he's going to provide on the offensive end. Given we don't want to see another Milwaukee shot out with the 4 for 14, but again, like, his offense isn't where he's going to provide the most value in this series. It'll provide a lot of value, but the most value he can get is by making life very, very difficult for Chris Paul. And that's what he needs to focus on, in my opinion, more than the offensive end. The offense will come. He, just like the rest of the Bucks roster, they missed a lot of bunnies. Like, he didn't take good shots. He didn't get to his, sort of spots where he's most effective. He was taking a lot of step backs, taking a lot of early shot clock jumpers. Like, that's not his game. Like, that'll come with better decision making. But if he's exerting most of his energy on the defensive end, I'll live with some of those sort of shots and sort of that not as peak offensive production from Drew if we're seeing elite defense.
Terrific segue. I wanted to get into the defense, and I do think not dropping is big. We've said it 100 times on this podcast, me quoting myself, Adam quoting me. The one time that's not in a derogatory sense, Adam quoting me. Brook is just too good not to play. And I think, talking about Torrey Craig or whatever, like, if the Bucks still had Torrey Craig, I would not want him playing over Brook freaking Lopez. Brook is better. Brook is a 16-game player. You need to figure out ways to keep him on the floor because we've seen him win games against so many different teams. He had a block on Kevin Durant that helped seal a Game 7 win. Like, come on. So I think talking about Drew staying on point guards, the Bucks in general just need to be more aggressive on some of these single screen, multi-screen actions, whatever it is, especially against the Suns team that doesn't love pulling up from 3. So, Paul I'm a little more worried about. Chris Paul, maybe you switch it a little easier. I still think some of these double screens, like, have 2 guys drop that aren't Brook and just figure out how to guard the perimeter if you have to. Stick someone on Chris Paul, but maybe not his man initially. But especially Booker, who, and I say this, he'll probably have his best shooting game of the series tonight because I'm saying this. If he wants to pull up a lot of some semi-contested threes, I don't mind it. He's 34%, I think, on the postseason, less than that on pull-up threes. I'd much rather have that than letting him settle into one-on-ones against Lopez with 20 on the shot clock and plenty of time to make the big fella dance. Like, Brook is so much more effective on these switches if he knows, okay, 8 seconds, 10 seconds, like, just keep him in front of me for a little bit and we're good. I think that's going to be huge in the Bucks playing a defense that's sustainable, that doesn't look so bad, even if the effect wasn't so bad that they have to try something wild and it doesn't always work.
I think just trust in Brook. As a
Also
coaching
that.
staff, as a team, trust in Brook. If the Bucks are going to lose this series, I would rather see them go down with Brook Lopez than go down with Bryn Forbes. And they're the kind of options that we're going to play to here. If Brook isn't playing, who's going to play in his place? What kind of lineups are you going to? Brook can just do so much more for you on both ends of the floor. He's one of the smartest, if not the smartest defenders on the team. And for all those shots that were going in over his head, particularly in the first half of Game 1, lot of good contests, and when he came off the floor, the contests weren't always good. So if you're going to see shots go in, I'd rather see, the 7'1" guy with his hand draped in what's Chris Paul, like a 6-footer's face. I can deal with that, and I think for all that he's done for the Bucks in this postseason, and for just how central he is to their team, they cannot just kind of scurry away from that too quickly and be like, we can't trust Tim Brook. I just want to shout out one of the comments. We might have some more questions there. Eugene from Greece. It's now it's 3:46 a.m. in Greece. Respect to Eugene, because that's 2 hours ahead of me, and I'm struggling already. I know what that grind's like. So respect to Eugene. Thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely. Rohan, what are your thoughts on just general defense and keeping Brook Lopez on the floor?
Yeah, you just got to trust in the contest. The deceptive length is one way over, fine. But it's you just got to trust in it, and you just, like I mentioned earlier, you got to vary it up. These players on the Suns are way too smart to just constantly throw the same sort of schemes at them. They did it a little bit in game one, but they switched up their schemes in the middle at halftime and sort of just came out running the same thing possession after possession. If you do that, guys like Chris Paul's one of the most intelligent players to ever play the game. Like, you can't throw the same stuff at him possession after possession, because he'll figure it out after one time. You just have to keep varying the schemes, making him think, because even though you can still lose while making Chris Paul think, it's better than just giving him time to really, like, okay, how am I gonna fillet this? Because he's a maestro in the pick and roll.
I almost disagree. I think the point on CP3 is valid, but I think what that means is you should just, like, you just can't throw something that's going to be totally suboptimal as a surprise to him. Because I just think he'll figure it out too quickly.
I'm not saying that.
But that's what the Bucks did, though, right? Like, the deep drop was...
Yeah.
The Suns loved it. They just loved it. Like, that's exactly what they wanted to see. And that's when Booker and Paul really were just like, okay, we're going to get wide open shots. We're going to can them. All the momentum is going in our favor right now. And they took it and they ran with it for sure. So, I mean, I'm not against throwing in a drop scheme for some minutes here or there. Has to be a higher drop, and there's going to have to be help and rotations and everything else. But I just think, like, when CP's out there, you can't, like, I don't want to, I hope they don't try the zone. That's the one thing I'm terrified of. If they just can't do it. They're so bad at zone. I don't know why. It's just bad. I don't want to see the zone defense from the Milwaukee Bucks in this game.
I have no problem with them starting in the drop. Honestly, it has to be a higher drop. But we talked about this before. They didn't help themselves by, when the switch was beating them and guys got in rhythm, then going, oh, well, now we're going to drop way back and let you take those shots. It's like, it's too late. They're already making them.
Yeah, that was that.
Can't
yeah,
let them get comfortable.
I'm still shocked they didn't start in a drop. And at the time, I was like, this is great that they're not. But it almost would have been better if they did, I think. Like, I agree, Adam. I think throwing the switch would have been harder for Phoenix to deal with. Like, I think when the Bucks started dropping, because that's, I'm sure, what the Suns probably expected right away, because that's what the Bucks always start in. So it was almost like this Phoenix contended well enough with the curveball, and then they just got a bunch of pitches that they were supremely ready for, and not even just like that game, but I'm sure as a whole preparing for this series, that's what they were looking for, and they knocked them out of the park. All due respect. Only a couple minutes left here, so let's talk about game predictions and updated series predictions. I won't ask for final scores. That's Rohan's job. We'll get that afterwards for game 3.
What's wrong with it?
We'll
What's
get that
wrong
after.
with the final
Rohan,
score?
Impossible. No one can get it right. It's impossible.
Just
It's a pointless
game.
exercise.
How do you think the game's gonna go?
Oh wait, one point on Brook I forgot. Did everyone see the video where they showed
The bakery?
The elbow. He like tapped his elbow to show that there was going to be an action at the elbow, and the Bucks still. I think it was Steve Jones Jr. tweeted that, I believe. One half of the dunker spot, an excellent follow. But I was like, oh my God, Brook Lopez is such a cool guy. But okay.
He's the guy who calls all their plays, both ends. He
is
the best communicator on the team, which is another reason, particularly on defense, in this series of all series. Keep him out there as much as you can.
Agreed. Adam, how do you think the game goes, and what are your thoughts on the series?
My thoughts on the series haven't changed yet, and they won't change until we see game 3. I think it's basically, unless something disastrous happens tonight, knocking on wood. I still think this series will be there for the Bucks to win in 7 games. I think they have a chance of doing that. Whether they win tonight, different question. I'm not quite optimistic, but what I would like is them to be there, unlike last time where they had to fight back to get within kind of 7-8 points. If they could be in kind of 4 or 5 point range with 5 minutes to go, that's a good spot to be on the road with a chance to tie a final series up. So that would be the big thing for me. Just be close, give yourself a chance and see how it goes.
Yeah, you got to give yourself a chance. I think that's a great way to put it. I think they'll probably win this game. I think they should win this game. They have the personnel. They have this. I won't say. Let's. I don't want to say. No. It's fine.
I get it now.
I see in the chat here, Robert Schultz, score predictions are bad. You to know that.
No, that's you. That's you typing that in. But I do think this game is available to the Bucks. They can take this game. A lot of things went against them in game 1. A lot of things have the potential to go their way in this game. I believe in this team for some reason, even though that's probably not a good thing to do. But I don't know. They've got me reeled in.
I'm reeled in too. I think 60-40% chance they win. I'm not going to say they for sure will. As much as I too have been roped into believing in the Bucks.
Jordan, is that you?
Saying they will win in a road game of the finals. Game 2 in the final. It still feels a little bit too far for me, but I think I think they can very much do it. I think it'll be up to them more than anything else. I'm gonna roll. Actually, no. You know what? I have to say that they're gonna win because I still feel solid about Bucks in 6, and they need to win for Bucks in 6. I stand by that earlier take where, but Bucks in 7 is all that's happening if they lose this one. So
just protecting the pick, Greg.
I'll go with the 60%. That's the right call. I'm going with the 60%.
Okay.
That's statistics.
Jordan's not here to say that the Suns will definitely win or something. So that's not that he'd ever say anything's definite, but no, he'd lead Suns.
Yeah, I think GVD man put it well, saying this game would be a bonus.
100%.
It would be gravy.
Big bonus. Gets back to what we were talking about at the start. It's not a must win, but it's as close as you can get.
There we go. Icing on the cake. Let's indulge on icing tonight. Rohan, we've got 1 minute till 8 p.m. Do you want to lead us out here?
Sure. I think Muhammad put it well in the chat, crossing my fingers that the post-game pod is going to be a happy one rather than a therapy session.
Us too, buddy. Us too.
Us, yes, exactly. Us too. We hope it's a happy post-game, but we will end this pre-game live stream. Say thanks to everyone who's been tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed to this YouTube channel so we can continue to do these live pre-games so you get notifications, stuff like that. Make sure you're subscribed to the Gyro Step Podcast Network as well, because as Muhammad said, we're going to have a post-game show. And as we're saying, we're going to have a post-game show. So hopefully it's a happy one, not a therapy session. But even if it is, it's still going to be great content. We're throwing all the great content we can as these playoffs continue to roll on. I shouldn't even say that. It's the finals. This is it for the postseason. So guess we'll end this saying, enjoy the game, everyone. Try and stay sane. And we will talk to you on the post-game show.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.